wherever you are, feel most welcome to our series of lectures this week, in which we want to deal with library skills. As you are well aware, the type of engagement that we have with you is one in which we have to interact with you online. But today and in the course of the week, we are going to change the mode a little bit so that we can get to give you an opportunity to access our lectures by way of accessing them through online pre-recorded series. We are doing this to enable those of you who might be having problems with logging in to spare their own free time where they can interact with the materials, they can listen to the lectures, they can also read on their own, because this is the way we are going to interact until such a time when you report for physical training. Ladies and gentlemen, if there is one facility that you'll find extremely important in your life as a university student, is the library. To many of you, the library is going to be your second home. In fact, it's going to be the only facility that possibly you'll keep on visiting, apart from your hostels where you go to sleep, and possibly the dining hall where you go to eat. Unless you develop a close relationship with the library, you're going to have problems. You may not end up being the scholar that we want you to be. So basically, we are going to introduce you to a few skills that you'll find very important when you visit our library, or when you visit any other library for that matter. We have a very modern and well-stocked library in Moi University called the Margaret Thatcher Memorial Library. If you have an opportunity to be in Moi, even before we reopen, please get time to visit the library. You'll get members of the library staff who will guide you. Possibly, what I should have started with was to introduce myself. I am called Makobila. Makobila Laban is my name. I am a lecturer in the School of Education, the Department of Curriculum, Instruction and Educational Media, specialist in English language education, and one of the 3 lecturers whom you will be interacting with in this course. You've already interacted with Dr. Robert Masinde, and you'll continue interacting with him. We also are gender sensitive, and very soon you'll be interacting with Dr. Benta Gudu. These are men and women who are good in what they are doing, and they are always ready and happy to help you. So without wasting a lot of time, there are certain critical skills that you will need to possess. Why? Because a library being a very massive building, being a very massive place, you may end up not benefiting a lot from the library, because you will only visit a particular section and imagine that you have visited the entire library, only for you to realize much later that there are very many other places that you should have visited that contain all books, that contain all the materials that you may require for purposes of doing very well in your areas of study. We are therefore going to begin by looking at a brief definition of the library. We shall be looking at the various classification systems. We shall also look at the various types of libraries, their functions, etc. So that at the end of these lectures, you should be able to locate books without using a reading list, the books that you'll be able to find in the library. You should also be able to prepare a list of books that you have bought, because we are going to take you through library skills that may also help you build your own libraries back at home. You should also be in a position of designing a library catalog card, and also be able to use this card in accessing materials. There are very many other things that we shall be doing, but for this morning, or for this day, let us look at a few areas. And to set us off is to try and give a working definition of a library. We are not going to restrict you to any definition, but then you will realize that in many a times we look at a library as an information center that facilitates access to and use of information in the form of books, non-book material, and computerized databases. When you go to the library, you can get videos, you can get magazines, you can get all the materials that you may require for purposes of your study. It is therefore a place where information is acquired, the information is systematically organized, and it is systematically disseminated to library users, of which you are going to be one of them. When we talk about library skills, ladies and gentlemen, we are thinking about techniques that will enable a library user, such as you, make efficient use of the library and reap maximum benefits from it. You may not have a whole day to visit the library. The time that you go to the library will be limited, and within that particular time, then, if you have the relevant library skills, you will be able to make maximum use, and you will leave the library a satisfied person. Some of the skills that you will want to possibly think about are the role of a library in a university. You should also be thinking about the classification systems that libraries employ, and also their capacity to use library catalogs, what we call catalogs, in locating books. And finally, most importantly, for your term papers, you should be able to write references, you should be able to write bibliographies at the end of it all. So, what is the role of a library in a university? Remember, a university is a place where we have scholars. You will meet lecturers, you will meet specialists, you will meet researchers, and you'll also meet students. This is because in a university, the main role is teaching, the main role is research, and the main role is dissemination of information. So the library acts and plays a very important role in supporting teaching, in supporting learning, and in supporting research by providing information resources and services that are up to date. It supports these activities by, one, providing relevant and up-to-date information. The moment you visit a library, you will get all the information that you require about specific books. You will get the information that you require about specific journals. You will get information that you require about specific sections where you can get all the materials that you may be in need of. Secondly, the library supports teaching and learning and also research by providing useful resources that the library users may require. Not just books. You may require videos. You may require atlases. You may require the Bible. You may require the Quran. All this you will get in the library. You may also require just some verbal information on how to use the library, in which case you will talk to the library assistants and they'll be able to help you in a better way. Finally, library services are offered in a relaxed and good atmosphere that supports study. When you go to the library, you will wonder how come the place is so quiet. And even when people have to talk, they have to do so in whispers. It is almost something that comes very automatically, you know? And that is why many people have, in a humorous way, compared libraries to mortuaries. Because this is the only place where you will go and you will find people who are not ready to speak. So if you want to keep quiet, then you better visit the library. So, when you visit the library, you are expected to independently seek information because information is the greatest commodity that you will require in your career and in your various roles of learning how to do things the way they're supposed to be done. Ladies and gentlemen, so far I have succeeded in creating an impression that a library is a place that you will have very many things. That therefore means that all these things cannot be found in one place. All these things cannot be found in one type of library. And so we have different types of libraries. Let us, in the next few minutes, survey the various types of libraries that you are bound to meet, not just within the university, but even outside your universities. I think some of you are coming from schools that have had libraries. very good libraries with books, even with library assistants. But there are those of you who also went to schools where the only libraries that you might have interacted with were places where books were stored because you did not have space to read from. All these are types of libraries. But in a nutshell, one of the most important and common types of libraries is the public library. We have a good example of a public library here in town in Eldoret. When you come to Eldoret, you will get a public library that is run by the Kenya National Library Services. The aim of a public library is to provide information on a whole range of human experiences, a whole range of human knowledge, a whole range of human culture, and in so doing, public libraries play a very significant role in encouraging reading for leisure, in encouraging positive use of recreational time, and yeah. So when you are in town and you have nothing to do, you visit a town where we have a public library. Instead of going around window shopping, walking from one shop to the other, admiring whatever items there are, and in the process possibly risk stepping on tomatoes that are sold by mama mbogas, you better visit a library. Therein you'll find books, you'll find newspapers, you'll find anything that you may want to keep you busy, and so you will end up recreating yourself. Secondly, we have academic libraries. These are libraries that are found in institutions of learning. And these institutions normally have similar aims. For example, institutions of higher learning such as universities, colleges, and polytechnics have their own libraries, and the libraries that are found in such institutions are examples of academic libraries. Their main aim is to support learning, teaching, and research activities among the communities that are found within these institutions. In primary and secondary schools, academic libraries form the basis for wide reading and references. The purposes, services, equipment, and other physical facilities of these libraries are actually determined by the nature of the curriculum and the size of the faculty and the students. That is why you will find that a university library may differ from a polytechnic's library, or may differ from the libraries that you might actually have had in your secondary schools, because in the university, the libraries are designed in a way that they have to meet the various needs of the university community. And a university community is made up of very many schools, made up of very many faculties. So you will have a section that is specifically relevant for, say, engineers. For you students who are taking education, you'll also find that within the library, there are specific sections that might interest you as say, a student of literature, a student of geography, a student of economics. And so academic libraries differ mainly because of the very many activities that these institutions perform. The third type of library that we have are the national libraries. The national libraries are actually meant to ensure that all the publications in a particular country are acquired and preserved for posterity. It is a requirement that if you are a Kenyan, for example, you publish a book, you must deposit a copy with the National Library. And we have a good example of a national library that we have in Nairobi, where all the publications about Kenya, all the publications by authors, who have authored books, Kenyans who have authored books either within or outside the country, bring their books and they're deposited there. So you can get these books if you need them. National libraries also purchase books from other countries. They also purchase books from other countries, and you can therefore access these books without a lot of problems. Other functions of a national library include production of a current bibliography. We will be talking about bibliographies, but in a nutshell, a bibliography is simply a list of items that are found in a particular library. So a national library has a system of storing all the relevant books, all the relevant materials that have been produced, that have been purchased by that particular country. It also compiles what we may call a union catalog. It also provides reference services. When you need reference services, you don't know who has published what, you visit a national library, you will get this. National libraries also do publishing. They also have publishing firms. They have also publishing capacities, and you can publish, you can photocopy, you can print items from this. Finally, national libraries conduct research and development in librarianship and information sciences. There are those of you who may end up not being teachers, in as much as you're training to be teachers. You may end up serving as librarians. And so you will end up conducting research. You will end up training as a librarian. And so you may be employed by a national library to be in charge of this. We have various examples of national libraries both within and outside Kenya. We can think about the British Library, the Library of Congress, and the Kenya National Library Services as examples of national libraries. The Kenya National Library serves both as a public as well as a national library. So it has that dual function. We don't have to confuse between the two. The fourth type of library is what we call the special libraries. Special libraries. I know some of you have been to research institutions. Some of you have visited such institutions as Parliament. You have visited institutions that have their own way of storing information that is relevant to them, such as banks. These also have their own libraries. Such examples of libraries then are referred to as special libraries. Libraries that are run by such research bodies as the Institute for Insects Study, ISIPE. We have ILRAD, we have KIE, Kenya, these days KICD, Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. It has its own library. We have AMREF, we have UNESCO. These are examples of organizations that have their own libraries because of the special nature of their services, the special nature of their services, yes, which then demand that they have to store information that is relevant to the services that they provide. We have the judiciary, for example. The judiciary has its own library where lawyers, where judges, during their own free time, go and conduct research on issues that affect their practice. Other than this, we have a modern type of library which I believe all of you are familiar with, and this is the digital libraries. A digital library is mainly a type of library that is accessed through computers with internet facilities. They store up-to-date information from diversified fields. Normally, such facilities can be provided by learning institutions at a fee. You can access such facilities at a fee. A good example of a digital library is what most of you are now using. And at least all of you are now in possession of a digital library, such as the mobile phone. When you Google, you will get all the information that you require. So that becomes a form of a digital library. When talking about digital here, we should not confuse digital libraries with digitized libraries. What most of the libraries are now doing is to digitize their materials. That is to make sure that people can access their materials from the comfort of their sitting rooms by use of networks, by use of computer networks, by use of online facilities. So you will, for example, be able to access information from Margaret Thatcher Memorial Library from wherever you may be, as long as you have the links to Margaret Thatcher Memorial Library. So far, ladies and gentlemen, we have given a definition of what a library is. I don't need to repeat it. We have also looked at the role that a library plays in a learning institution such as a university. And most importantly, we have looked at the various types of libraries. With that information, ladies and gentlemen, I do imagine, and I am sure, you can explain the various types of libraries and their functions. But most importantly, you are able to now appreciate how library systems are organized in such a way that you can comfortably receive or access their information without getting lost in the process. Ladies and gentlemen, as I wind up this lecture, allow me to look at the different sections of a library. We have said that a library is a collection of books. And so when you go to the library, you will get so many books. Chances are that unless you are aware of the specific section where a particular book is located, then you may not be able to locate the book with a lot of ease. That's why libraries have been divided into certain sections. These sections are managed and they are manned by personnel who will always be ready to help you access the information that you may require. So, there are very many sections, and the first section that we want to look at is the lending or the general circulation section. The lending section is a section in the library that contains books that are arranged on shelves in a given order. We shall be looking at the order when we'll be dealing with the library classification systems. These books may be borrowed or they may be read within the library. So libraries have tables, libraries have chairs, libraries have shelves. You go to the shelf, the relevant shelf, pick a particular book, move to a table, read from there. If you have a whole day, you can read. If you don't want to use a library book, you can go to the library with your own book. Sit somewhere in the library and read. Take advantage of the relaxed atmosphere that libraries create and read from the comfort of the library. You can also borrow books, and a book from the general circulation section, or the lending section for that matter, can only be borrowed by those who have a library card. If you go to a public library, for example, you will need to register with the library. Then you will be given a card, and it is this card that will enable you borrow books to go and read for a maximum period of time as specified by the library, by the specific library. At the Margaret Thatcher Memorial Library, for example, books from the general section are borrowed for a period of 1 month. So you'll go with your card, borrow a book, and go and use it for not more than 1 month. The moment you overstay with the book, beyond 1 month, then there are certain charges that will be levied, and you'll have to bear the cost, because you cannot borrow any books unless you pay for the levies. You can also renew books that are borrowed at the end of a specific period of time. You say, like for you undergraduate students at Moore University, we allow you to borrow books for up to 1 month. You are allowed to borrow books from the general section for a period of 1 month. If at the end of 1 month you still have a need for using the same book, then you can renew the book for another period of 1 month, or depending on how on the demand that we have for that book, then you may be restricted as to the length of time that you'll be allowed to renew the book. These books, as I have already said, may also be read within the library and must be left on the reading tables. This is because the library assistants will come around and pick the books and take them to the relevant shelves. An aspect which you may not be conversant with, because it is the library assistants who understand the shelving, you know. And so you read the book that you have borrowed from the general section. You want to read it within the library, read it and leave it on the table. If a borrower wishes to borrow a book that has been borrowed, yet yes, you go to the library, you want a particular book, and it is realized that that book has been borrowed by another user, say a member of your class. What you will do is to fill in what we call a reservation form, so that that book is reserved for you. You will even be told when the book will be brought back, and on that particular day you will go and pick the book, because you will have reserved and nobody can borrow that book for that matter. If you urgently need a book, depending on the circumstances, then the book can easily be recalled. So that means that when you borrow a book from the library, you don't just have to borrow it for the sake of it, so that you walk around with it. People know that you really visit the library, yet you don't read it. You have to continuously read it, because at any time, the librarians have that permission, they have that authority to recall the book if somebody needs it in for research, or needs it to actually undertake a very serious activity with it. The second section, ladies and gentlemen, where you people will also get some services, is the short loan section. The short loan section. Like the title suggests, this is a section in the library that stores books that are few in supply, yet they are high on demand. And so you can only borrow it for a maximum of 2 hours. You can only read it for a maximum of 2 hours. These books are borrowed and read within the library. They cannot be taken out. If you need to take them out, then you can only borrow them overnight. That means you borrow them at the end of the working session, when the library closes down, normally at around 10 p.m., and then you are able to return the book the following morning at 9 when the library opens. So books from this short loan section are ideally borrowed and read within the library. If at the end of the 2 hours you are unable, you still find that you need to use the book, then you can go back and renew. Otherwise, you will again attract certain levies, because for every 1 hour that the book is extended, then there are some levies that are paid. The third section of a library is the reference section. This is a section that contains books on general reference and specific reference. These are books that cannot be taken out of the section, out of the room, out of the library. They are borrowed and read within the reference section. Some of these books include encyclopedia, for example. You cannot borrow an encyclopedia, whatever the case. You will read it and leave it there. Dictionaries, this can never be borrowed from the library. Atlases, Bibles, etc. These are reference books that are read within the section, not even within the library. You cannot, for example, take an atlas from the reference section to go and read it from, say, from the general circulation section. You will read it from within the reference section because there are also tables and chairs that you can use. The fourth section is the periodical section. There are two types of periodicals. We have what we call the current or loose periodical, and these contain materials that are published periodically, either daily, weekly, fortnightly, monthly, half-yearly, or yearly. Such materials include newspapers, magazines, journals, abstracts, etc. These are materials that are produced, either they are published either daily like newspapers. So when you want to read a newspaper, you will go to the periodical section. You'll go to the periodical section, get a newspaper, read it from there. If you want to possibly read a magazine, some magazines are published on weekly basis, some are published on monthly basis, some are published on half-yearly basis. You will go pick the magazine, read it, and leave it there. So those are examples of loose periodicals. Now, then we have the bound periodical section.